Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Dr. Libby Saunier, and I'm the Executive Director of the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children. As an independent source of data, research, and pertinent information for policymakers, the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children works to shed light on the light of early care and education in Louisiana. Alongside our partners, the Policy Institute has been surveying Louisiana parents with young children as part of a larger effort to help understand the child care arrangements, needs, and experiences of our families here in Louisiana. This year's report, Maintain the Momentum, the role of child care investments in supporting working families, was compiled from survey findings from October 19th to November 22nd, 2022. This report is especially important as our state faces the impending fiscal cliff from the expiration of one-time federal funding related to COVID dollars, which threatens to leave tens of thousands of young children without care and education while their parents work or attend school. I'm grateful you all can be here today to hear from our panelists as they share the top 4 takeaways and insights from this survey. Before I introduce our moderator for today's press conference, I want to take a moment to thank the Louisiana Department of Education, United Way of Southeast Louisiana's Women United, and Agenda for Children for helping make this work possible. At this time, it's my honor to introduce today's moderator, Dr. Anna Mahoney, Board Chair of the United Way of Southeast Louisiana's Women United. Thank you for leading us today, Anna.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Libby, and thank you and the entire Policy Institute team for hosting today's virtual event. It's my honor to serve as the moderator for today's program as we share the findings from the Policy Institute's latest report, Maintain the Momentum, the Role of Child Care Investments in Supporting Working Families. The survey provides many helpful insights into the continued needs and challenges of families with young children in Louisiana, which is why Women United of Southeast Louisiana continues to support this important work and mission. Throughout today's program, I encourage you to utilize the chat box to share any questions you have. There will be dedicated time at the end of the event for a question and answer session, where we will attempt to answer all of your questions. With that, it's my pleasure to now welcome our first panelist, Constance Causey, parent leader from Ouachita Parish. Welcome, Constance.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Mahoney, for the introduction. It is an honor and pleasure to be with you all today. According to the latest survey, year over year, Louisiana's families with young children rely on childcare to support parent employment and education. To provide a bit of background, most responding parents were working or in school full-time and outside of the home. Although the unemployment rate was 3 times as high for parents with a family income below $20,000 per year. Families with young children rely heavily on some type of formal childcare outside the home. Over 80% of parents reported utilizing childcare for 30 or more hours per week, with children in childcare for an average of 38 hours per week. I know my daughter, she's there 40 hours per week. Families with young, in 2022, parents indicated the main reasons for using the current child care arrangements were hours and availability, child interactions with others, supporting kindergarten readiness, and convenient locations. Over half of parents made some sort of adjustment to their work or school schedule to provide child care in the previous 6 months. Parents with a family income below $20,000 per year were twice as likely to have to quit their job in order to care for their children. Families with young children need childcare to go to work and to go to school. Lack of reliable care leads to costly parental absences for Louisiana businesses. Specifically, that cost is $762 million annually from missed work, turnovers, and other related costs. And it is a staggering $1.3 billion annual loss. Get that. $1.3 billion in annual loss to the Louisiana economy. This is an issue that impacts us all, and not just those of us that have young children at home. Thank you so much, Bernie.
Thank you, Constance. Next, I'm pleased to introduce and welcome Stephanie McGuffey, parent leader from LaSalle Parish.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to be here today. I have two kids of my own, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So this is very close to me. This latest survey shows us that the cost of childcare remains high, with childcare costing the average Louisiana family almost $8,500 a year. On average, families in Louisiana are paying $348 per child per month for childcare. For a family with 2 children, that would translate to $8,341 a year. Rates are especially high for families paying for childcare and not receiving any type of subsidized care. On average, their monthly cost of childcare was $709 per child per month, or $17,023 per year for a family with 2 kids. This exceeds what it costs for 1 year of college tuition. So basically, we're paying the more for our children to go to daycare than we would for them to go to college. Families receiving some sort of subsidized childcare, but still having to pay some amount, the average monthly cost of childcare was $433 per child per month, or $10,395 per year for a family with 2 kids. Over 50% of families responding to the survey received some type of subsidized childcare in 2022, either through enrollment in CCAP, which is the Child Care Assistance Program, and or a free childcare program. As a reminder, these families are still responsible for making up the difference between what a CCAP subsidy will cover and what providers charge in tuition. As we can see, even with recent expansions to publicly funded programs like CCAP, affordable, high quality early care and education still remains out of reach for many families. And I am one of those families. Here in LaSalle Parish, there are no daycares really overall. My daughter was lucky enough to be one of the 8 that, after a 2-year wait list, finally got into the early Head Start program. And she's thriving there and doing great. And, obviously that is a free program, so we love that. But other than that, there are no actual daycare centers here, only in-home, babysitters and stuff. So anyone in LaSalle Parish who applies for CCAP does not get approved because there are no centers here to offer that.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's I remember those days when my children were young. And so I really appreciate you sharing that and how high the cost of childcare is for families across our state and their ability to access care at all. So I just want to remind everybody, whether you're dialing in from Louisiana or joining us from afar, thank you for being with us today. And to remind you to utilize the chat box with any questions you may have. So next, please join me in welcoming our parent leader from East Baton Rouge Parish, Megan Thomas.
Thanks, Anna. Good morning. My name is Megan Thomas, a mother of 2, ages 2 and 4. As we begin the conversation about the findings of the parent poll, I know this to be true. Much of my own experiences with raising children in Louisiana were echoed here. The Policy Institute's latest parent survey shows that working families benefit from increased supports, and any reductions will have a greater impact on those who are struggling the most. For reference, in 2022, almost half of the parents were concerned about being unable to afford childcare, me included. Over half of the parents also indicated having trouble paying for basic household expenses, including utilities, childcare, food, clothing, and clothing in the prior 6 months. While these numbers are high, they disproportionately impact families in certain regions and income brackets. For example, parents in Northeast Louisiana and those with family incomes below $50,000 per year were more likely to have trouble paying for basic household expenses. When looking at current avenues for support, nearly half of the parents claimed or planned to claim school readiness tax credits for childcare expenses on their 2021 Louisiana tax return. Data from the United Way's ALICE report has shown that childcare is often the most expensive item in a family's budget. subsidies such as the state school readiness tax credits for childcare expenses can help ensure that families, particularly low-income families, can afford childcare for their young children without having to borrow money or forego necessities. Unfortunately, at the federal level, Congress has let the expanded child tax credit expire, returning the tax credit to the pre-pandemic version that failed to help our neediest families. And it's unclear if this issue will be addressed anytime soon.
Thank you, Megan. We have one final finding to showcase today. Please join me in welcoming our parent leader, Ashley Dobard, from my home parish of Jefferson Parish, as she shares today's fourth finding.
Good morning, everyone. Can you guys see me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Anna, and thank you to everyone involved in complying and sharing this report. The final finding to share today is that childcare challenges continue to persist for working families. Over 1/5 of parents said it was difficult to find their current childcare arrangements. As with previous findings, we see that these difficulties vary by region. Families in the capital region and southeast Louisiana, as well as parents did not receive any type of subsidized care, we're more likely to report difficulty finding childcare. The report also shows us that nearly 75% of parents reported that having to take at least one day from work in the prior 3 months became of a child care closure. Now, I would like to once again welcome, is it Libby? Yes. Libby, the Executive Director of Policy Institute, for some final remarks. Thank you all for having me this morning.
Thank you so much, Ashley, and to all of our presenters, stakeholders, board members, media members, and members of the Policy Institute team and partners for participating in this important discussion. These survey results show us that working families rely on childcare, and childcare challenges impact the workforce participation. To support working families and their employers, Louisiana must do 4 things. 1, continue state investments in early care and education to increase access to high quality early care and education, especially for children birth through age 3, including funding for programs that received one-time federal stopgap investments. 2, encourage local investments to generate revenue for early care and education through continued state investment in the Louisiana Early Childhood Education Fund. 3, support continued professionalization of the early care and education workforce through compensation and training strategies implemented by the Louisiana Department of Education and the Louisiana Workforce Commission. And finally, encourage increased federal investment in early care and education to support increased access to affordable childcare for working families. With these investments, we'll see children prepared for success in school and in life, working parents and caregivers maintaining workforce participation, employers having a reliable workforce with minimal interruptions, and communities throughout the state enjoying robust employment rates, economic growth, and tax revenues. Thank you again to everyone who participated in the virtual event.
Thank you, Libby, and to all of our speakers for taking the time to join us today and share these critical findings. We will now transition into the question and answer portion of today's event. So everyone feel free to post any questions you have into the chat. Libby, you did such a good job. No one has questions.
I think I just saw one come in directly to me, and it's for our parents on the panel today. For you, what is your biggest struggle with childcare? Is it, the question is about wondering if it's finding it, affording it, or both of those things, and how do you deal with that?
I'll answer that first, I guess. Kind of going off of what I stated before, the biggest struggle for me is actually finding childcare. Like I said, my daughter was on the wait list for the early Head Start for 2 years, and she'll be 3 next month. So, she's only been there for a little under a year. But before that, there wasn't really any options, like I said, other than in-home sitters, and I couldn't afford it. So her and my son both, until they started Head Start, stayed with my grandparents and my mom, back and forth with them, which is great. And I'm very grateful for that. But they really missed out on a lot of that social and emotional first year stuff that they needed. Like my son, he used to be so to himself. He didn't like other people. He was never around other kids his age. It was always just him and his grandparents. And once he started Head Start, he started actual Head Start at 3 years old. After 1 week, he started saying hey to strangers in Walmart. And that was like such a big thing for us, where it was like, oh my gosh, he's actually talking to people. And then it turned into, please, son, stop talking to strangers in Walmart. But, so we're grateful for that. But I think the biggest struggle for us was finding it, and then also affordability.
Thank you so much for that. Ashley, you have your hand up. You wanted to respond?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to say one of my struggles is basically the timing is a problem for me. I have realized ever since kind of sort of, I would say, the ending of the pandemic, quote unquote, whatever you want to call that. But when they did open up the Head Start and daycare centers, a lot of them are ending at 2:30, sometimes 4 o'clock. And with a person like me, I am a hairstylist. I am self-employed. So I'm only able to do a certain amount of things because of my hours that I have. I have literally gotten about 3 or 4 camera light tickets going 5 or 6 miles over the speed limit because I'm rushing, trying to pick my children up. When my daughter, who is 11 now, when she was going to Head Start and childcare, things like that, it was closing at least 5:30, 6 o'clock. So the only struggle that I would say that I deal with is the timing. That part is a little difficult for me, but other than that, everything else is okay. I am happy that the program has an early Head Start because I have 3 toddlers. I have 2 18-month-olds and I have a 4-year-old. And I will say, like, with them being in school, my 18-month-old girls, they can talk really well. They have manners. They speak well. It's just really good. So I am happy that the program is available for me and my kids. It helps out a lot. I just would hope that eventually, as the years go on, that they would offer a little bit more time frame, because most people are at work till about 5:30, 6 o'clock anyway.
Thank you so much for that, Ashley. That's a feedback we've gotten from several parents in different, like the early Head Start and Head Start programs around the state, those hours can be problematic. So hearing that directly from you is really helpful.
It's hard. If you're coming from the West Bank area and you're trying to get to the East Bank area, if you're familiar with where I'm at, the traffic is just ridiculous,
yes,
And another thing too, one more issue, well, not really issue, I was wondering with the feeding schedule that they have for the kids too, would they be allowed to give them more snack, maybe one more snack with the timing that they do things? Because another thing that I run into when I pick my kids up at 4 o'clock, everybody's starving. Everybody's screaming and hollering, they're starving. So I've become smart. I stay strapped with snacks in my car. But some people are not able to provide snacks and things like that. So, just that's the only thing that I had.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I see Stephanie's hand back up.
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of piggyback again off of what she said. Like I said, my daughter is in early Head Start and my son is in he's in pre-K, but still goes to the Head Start this year. And my daughter, just this year, they changed it where they can stay until 4:30, which is great. But my son gets out at 2:30. So, and that's been really difficult trying to navigate that as well. And same with the food. My son has major sensory issues, and he does not eat meat whatsoever. And so he doesn't eat a lot of what they serve at school, but we're not allowed to send snacks or any kind of lunch. We're not allowed to send anything really for lunch. So that's an issue too, when in the evenings when he comes home, he's eating out of house and home because he hasn't ate all day.
I bet. Well, thank you so much for that. Any of our other panelists want to address the question?
I would. For me, my situation is a little bit different because graciously, I am able to afford home daycare, but I would like to personally see more structured, high quality, either early Head Start or pre-K 3 slots. Right now, I have a 3-year-old who's in a home daycare setting. And for me, that window around probably the end of between 2.5 and 5 years old is a very big period where they should be engaging in more learning, structured curriculum to help for their growth and development and that kindergarten readiness that we talked about. While my daycare lady, she does really good at giving them some exposure to things like ABCs and numbers and things like that, but really having them be prepared for that, for kindergarten when they get there at 5 years old is a big concern for me. And I'm in Northeast Louisiana. So there is a limited number of Head Start slots, which are typically reserved for more lower income families. There are practically no pre-K 3 slots. There are a few, but not very many. And with the month that my daughter was born in, she'll be starting school behind. So we'll have to wait an entire another year for her to be able to go to pre-K 4. So I feel like we need to, in our state, invest in more of those early learning slots. And like we said, make it more affordable for families to be able to expand access for families to those programs, because I would love for my daughter to be able to go to pre-K next year. She is learning so much and absorbing information. And I feel like there's a big gap if we just let those children fall through the cracks.
Thanks so much, Constance. I got another question from Dr. Keith Lederman. He's interested to know from the parent leaders, especially, as well as others on the call, what are the most important components of childcare for yourself and for the children in care? In other words, what are they paying for, and do they feel that they are getting their money's worth in early care and education settings? I think y'all alluded to that a little bit, talking about, your son, Stephanie, wanting to talk to everybody when he goes to the store and those types of things. I'm curious, Megan or Constance or Stephanie, what do you think, or Ashley, related to, are you getting what you need for your little people in these childcare settings?
I can start it off. We definitely need care that supports, somebody mentioned their social and emotional development, particularly for me, because I have a family that has had young children with developmental disabilities. And I know a lot of families that have siblings that have young children with developmental disabilities. So care that really promotes their growth, helping them to meet their milestones, being able to track their growth and development, not only academically meeting those goals, which is a large concern for me, but socially, supporting their behavioral health, their mental health. All of those components are very important. And I have personally feel that a lot of our child care, whether they're in-home or formal child care centers, don't currently receive appropriate training to support young children with developmental disabilities, particularly if they have behavioral health concerns. So for me, that is a large missing component, ensuring if it's an early Head Start teacher or pre-K 3, pre-K 4 teacher, that they have the skills and the tools necessary to support those young children. A lot of parents, like my sister who has a young son with cerebral palsy, they don't have options for early child care unless they put their child in a skilled nursing facility. There are really no other options or programs or services out there for them. So that will be a large area of investment for our state.
Thank you, Constance, for that, lifting up for our young children with developmental disabilities, having developmentally appropriate and appropriate supports as they need childcare too. They need access to quality early care and education.
I think a big thing for me is that it's not just a babysitting service. I want them to learn and develop, grow anywhere, any way possible that they can. Learning their letters, numbers, all that's great, but also preparing them. I think, like Constance was saying earlier, for kindergarten. Because I used to work in a school setting in pre-K as a child-specific aide, and the biggest issue we seen was these children coming in that didn't go to Head Start, or only ever stayed home with mom or grandparents, and they couldn't open their milk carton, they couldn't tie their shoes, they couldn't do these simple tasks that when they got to kindergarten it was already expected of them. And if they didn't know how to open their milk carton, they just weren't going to get any milk. Which I could go on about that, but it's just the little things like that, preparing them for big school, I think is one of the main things I like to look for as well.
Thank you for that. And there was a question by our friend Morgan Shannon. She's hearing from folks around transportation issues, and did that come up in the survey, especially in Orleans, but other parishes having the need as rural too? And I would say yes, it's come up as transportation. It's hard sometimes for parents to get their children to childcare. If you think in our more urban areas, you may have to take a bus to get to childcare. And it could be completely across town or in a different parish than you work or live. And then in our rural areas, you don't have public transportation. And so if a car's broke down or something like that, that really does limit access to quality early care and education. And Dr. Michelle Ned posted in the chat, she recently reviewed the articles that found several Louisiana school children are missing school on a continuous basis, and what can be done to mitigate these concerns. This survey is directly related to children birth through age 4, so really our early care and education population. And I know that there's many things going on in that K-12 world related to children missing school, but that is outside of our expertise at the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children. We keep it tight with these little people birth through age 4. But thank you all so much for the thoughtful responses and the thoughtful questions that you all had today. Before we close out today, I'd like to share some information about Louisiana Early Ed Month. And we are here today. I mean, we are in the midst of Early Ed Month in Louisiana. That the governor has declared as such, and many mayors across the state of Louisiana. And so as we end the month, we have 2 more events. On Thursday, February 16th, we invite you to participate as we celebrate a social media day of action. We'll be sharing a social media toolkit with you all following today's event, so you can learn how to join social media. And so nothing could make us more happy than when we open up all the modes of social media and we see Louisiana babies plastered around social media, celebrating Early Ed Month and the need for continued investment in early care and education. On Thursday, February 23rd at 12 p.m., we invite all parents and guardians or anyone who wants to learn how to advocate for Louisiana's youngest learners. We invite you to join us for our Louisiana Early Ed Month Parent Advocacy Lunch and Learn, and you can sign up. You can see the website here. So please join us, spread it out, let your friends know. And then we hope you can join us for continue to join us for Early Ed Month. And thank you again for attending today's press conference. You can follow us on social media. You can, and thank you to Anna to posting everybody. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us at info@policyinstitutela.org, and you can really review the whole report on our website. Because you registered for the event, we will send out the full report to you. So you will get that as well as a recording of today's findings. Again, thank you to our parent panelists. We couldn't do this work without you. We can't tell the story of our babies in the state without talking to parents. And thank you to Dr. Anna Mahoney and United Way of Southeast Louisiana's Women United. When we call for help, they always answer the call, because we're always wanting to make sure that Louisiana's families and young children have absolutely all they need because at the end of the day, we know to go far, we have to go far together. Thank y'all for joining us today. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Libby.